Hello and welcome to the 49ers Plus podcast. I'm Al Moriello, and this is your source for the most objective 49ers discussion and analysis. And today we're going to be breaking down the 49ers' dominant 38-13 home victory over the Chicago Bears. We're going to be going over some key stats to the game, the passing game, Brock being in complete command, reports of his demise greatly exaggerated. We're going to be getting into more Twitter twats discussion based on some really stupid 49er fans that are out there. The running game getting going without McCaffrey and Mason. Isaac Rendo leading the way. The defense bouncing back from that awful showing against Buffalo and the Packers, and the second half against the Seahawks. We're going to be talking Jake Moody and his dead leg, or whatever the fuck's going on there. Kyle Shanahan after the game and what it looks like in the NFC West moving forward. So let's jump right into it. And this was a game the Niners dominated from the start throughout, did not let their foot off the gas, did not let their foot off the throats of the Chicago Bears, getting up 21-0, should have been 28-0. Brock Purdy read option run and touchdown was negated by a Ricky Pearsall hold, but they were up 24-0 and absolutely obliterated the Bears in the first half from a point standpoint, time of possession, yardage. And I know people are asking, where was this all season? All right, let's start out with a couple things. One, Chicago is trash. The Bears are a garbage team. Now, I think a lot of us, myself included, were expecting a bump with Matt Eberflus getting fired and the OC being promoted to the interim head coach. Usually that happens. There's a little bit of energy, of rejuvenation of the team, especially with how bad Matt Eberflus has been for really the past year and a half. Did not happen. Did not happen. The interim head coach completely overmatched. Still doing offensive play calls. Isn't really qualified for that job. Certainly not qualified to be the interim head coach. Chicago unable to overcome what the Niners threw at them offensively and defensively. Caleb Williams looked like just a guy. He's having a decent rookie season. Just a guy. I know that there was a lot of hay made about David Lombardi, 49ers, if you want to call him a beat reporter, but he is a wild 49ers homer. Nothing objective about what he has to say at all. And that's okay. If he's getting paid to basically blow the team, then, blow the team to your heart's content. But he said something before the game started, how Brock is promising or the arrow's trending up, and Caleb Williams already looks like a bad bet before the game. Now, that was a ridiculous thing to say. Caleb Williams is having a solid season. Probably not as good as a lot of people thought. The Bears had a very easy schedule. Caleb Williams famously telling his punter he's not going to punt a lot this year. They have very good wide receivers. They have a good running back in Swift, a good tight end in Cole Kmet, an okay offensive line, and an opportunistic defense, top 10 pass defense that Brock absolutely shredded. And we're going to get into that. But this is still a trash team that lost 7 in a row, started off 4-2. They're now 4-9. Prior to this, they lost their last 3 games, were division games, all by 1 score. Division games sometimes are a coin flip. They're sometimes closer than they should be just because the teams know each other so well. They go into Santa Clara and get the doors blown off. This is what San Francisco should look like, not against good teams, but this is what we expected the Niners to do to New England, to the Jets, to maybe Arizona the first time when they got up big, to something close to this, to what they did to the Rams or in Los Angeles when they lost to the Rams and they were up by 2 scores also. I'm not saying they would have won these games by 25, but a 10-point, 14, 17-point victory against teams that the Niners are maybe just as good as or better than. Lost to the Vikings, obviously legit. Lost to the Chiefs, obviously legit. The Packers, the Bills, good teams. Niners undermanned. Niners without Brock. Niners and Bills in a snowstorm last week. So anyone saying, like, where was this all season? They're still not fully healthy. I mean, they're more injured now than they've probably been. Well, I shouldn't say that they're more injured now than they've been at any point this season, but they're still without now Mason and McCaffrey and Ayuk, and Ben Barch went down, and Grendo has a foot sprain coming out of that. We're going to talk about that. The Niners have been wildly inconsistent They've been extremely consistent in their inconsistencies. They haven't been able to put together a full game. Is this the first full game the Niners have put together since maybe week 1 against the Jets? Maybe, or more than likely, yes. But it came at the expense of a really bad team. And I thought the Niners would cover. The Niners were a 4-point favorite. I think I had them 23-16 over Chicago. Didn't see this offensive output coming. Saw them, holding the Bears under 20. But, NFL Network, 10 or 12 of their media pundits, air quotes, if you're listening on audio only on Spotify or whatnot, and thank you again if you're listening or watching, more than half chose the Bears to win this game. And I'm not a 49er homer. Those of you that have been listening and watching, you know that. I pick against them frequently. Where did the Bears have the advantage in this game? Where? The only place statistically was pass defense. Points allowed. 20 points allowed. Led up 38. 24 in the first half, 14 in the second half. Chicago was a bad team, but the Niners did what they're supposed to do against a bad team. Not just beat them, but absolutely dominate them to the tune of 452 total yards to 162 allowed. Turnovers were even, 1-1. First downs, 22-14 for San Francisco Niners. 3.5 minute advantage in time of possession. On third downs, the Niners were 6 of 12, plus 2 of 2 on fourth down. So 8 of 14, that's over 50% on money downs. They did allow the Bears to go 4 for 10. 40% is not terrible, but you want it to be under 40, under 37% if you can. And the Niners, although the yardage in the penalties wasn't a major issue, still 7 penalties for 31 yards. The Bears, 2 for 30. So complete and utter domination. And the turnover was a Brandon Allen interception when the game was 38-13 already. And whoever picked it off by the Bears, nice interception near the sideline, was strutting, like a peacock with his chest out, down 25. That's because most, youngins or some of these athletes are just, me, glory mongers. Someone should have pointed at the scoreboard, like when I know we're going back 30 years when Dion did against the Chargers. I don't know if the Chargers got a stop on downs or a turnover or did something. Dion, I remember, had his helmet off and just kind of like pointed to the scoreboard, whether it was 49-26 at the time or whatever it was. Usually I'm not a big fan of something like that, but when the moment calls for it, probably did for the Super Bowl, and it certainly did for this moron who was strutting down the sidelines after getting a pick down 25 with like 4 minutes to go in the game. Well done. Now the passing game, said it at the jump, the demise of Brock Purdy is greatly exaggerated by the vast majority of morons out there that call themselves 49er fans, but really don't have a fucking clue. Brock goes 20 of 25. Quick math, guys, 80% completion percentage for 325 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 145.4 rating. He had a perfect rating for a good portion of the game. Started out 18 for his first 18 against a top 10 Bears pass defense. Outplayed number 1 pick. Media drops to their knees to suck him off, Caleb Williams. And David Lombardi still isn't right about, I think he posted during the game, Brock's playing like a number 1 pick and Caleb Williams is playing like pick number 262, last pick of the draft, which isn't actually that off when you compare them. Brock more than doubled what Caleb Williams did from a yardage standpoint. Williams did throw 2 touchdowns, but they were more or less garbage touchdowns in the second half. The game was over at halftime, guys. When's the last time you could say that about a Niner game? Sometime last year, right? That the game was over at halftime. And the defense, while it played well, we're going to get into that. Second half, not as well. Not again. Still, when you're holding, a team under 107 yards of total offense, you're doing something right the whole game. But obviously, the Bears functioned much better in the second half than the first half. Passing game, Kittle, huge 6 for 151. Juwan Jennings, big 7 for 90 and 2 touchdowns. Isaac Guerendo, how about that? Someone other than Christian McCaffrey can actually catch a football. 2 for 50. I've been saying it for a while, guys, and I know it sounds like elementary nonsense, but these are human beings, young adults that have been playing football since before they were 10 years old. You can't tell me they can't catch a fucking football. You can't tell me they can't catch a check down or a flare or a screen pass or a dump off or a short in. Kyle's got to be willing to call it. And he is, if that's like one of the hot routes or one of the, quick check downs that's built into each pass or the majority of passing plays. Brock's got to be willing to take it. And at least on a couple times, he took it to Guerrero. And Debo, 2 for 22. Debo, another underwhelming game, out-received by Isaac Guerrero getting his first career start. And I know there was a report from Matt Mayoko this week that, and it's a report, but it's his opinion. His opinion is that he thinks Debo Samuel is going to be back for 2025. I know you guys probably have heard me say this a lot before. I've been saying for over a year and a half now, probably almost 2 years. My view was they extend Ayuk, they trade Samuel after this season. He's got 1 year left on his deal in 2025. Makes for pretty decent trade bait, although I'm not sure how much he's helping his trade value with what he's put on film the last month. Plus, and let's just quickly talk about that. I think, Debo reworked his contract where if, the cap hit isn't tremendous this year or next, I think actually next year might be higher than this year. And actually this year doesn't matter since it's almost over, but just solely next year. And if the Niners trade him or release him after June 1st, they only save $5 million. Not a ton in the grand scheme of things when you compare it to releasing or trading Javon Hargrave after June 1st. That's a $20 million cap savings. He should be gone. Debo, you could maybe see returning. Ayuk's not going to be healthy. Probably he's going to start off on the PUP list. Probably won't be ready until October. Then he's going to start off slow, just like this year, to get his legs from under him. So you're probably not going to see. I mean, it's going to take Ayuk a full, that 1.5 2 year mark to really get past the ACL reconstruction, but not to see them really be productive into probably November. So there is rationale for keeping Debo around, especially with Pearsall. I think 1 reception today on 2 or 3 targets. So 1 catch the last 4 games. Doesn't mean he's a bust. Doesn't mean he can't perform better the last 4 games or with another full training camp preseason into next year. But now I can start to see a scenario where Debo comes back. You'd have to get more than a 3rd round pick for him, because if Debo stays and plays out his final year in 2025, then him leaving in free agency in 2026, the Niners will probably be rewarded a 3rd round compensatory pick, 4th at the worst. So if you're going to get rid of him in 2025, you need at least a 4th round pick, if not more. And I would hold out for more. And there's probably going to be teams that are going to value Debo more than a 3rd, whether it's even if it's a 4th and a 7th, a 4th and a 6th, a 3rd and a 7th. I mean, I think you can get 2 picks for Debo, especially since his cap hit is low in 2025. Although wherever he goes, he's going to be negotiating a new contract. Anyways, all right, so let's get off the Debo stuff. How about this, guys? Did you notice there was multiple play action passes and completions in the first quarter alone? And play action was maintained throughout the game. Not a significant amount, but it was certainly there in the beginning that I noticed and peppered in throughout the rest of the game. So whatever, bullshit reasons Shanahan had before for not doing play action, this is the Niners offense. This is what the Niners do. Not just play action, but running the ball well, play action off it, throws behind the defense. You saw Kittle make a living today on that. And Juwan Jennings to some extent as well. Big completions, big chunk plays, and moving the chains to Kittle, to Jennings. You guys notice also really nice catch, one of Grendo's 2 catches on a wheel route down the right sideline. Brock under pressure looked awfully similar and was probably the same exact route that McCaffrey ran at Tampa, caught over his shoulder, Willie Mays style, and Guerrero did the same sort of thing, except he had to go down for it, made a nice catch. That was a really nice catch. The first catch, he was just kind of crossing, not really in front of Brock, but to Brock's left, and Brock hit him in stride, turned his hands out like that, caught it, took it for a nice game. This was a decent degree of difficulty catch for a running back, and he brought it in. Brock, we'll say another solid performance. I mean, he hasn't had one in a while, but the Grant Cohn clown click. Did Brock Purdy put a dent in your narrative to not sign him?
Come on, bro. Brock Purdy's he's not worth $50 million a year. I'd offer him $25 million a year, 30 at the max.
Less than Daniel Jones.
But he's just not worth it, guys. He's just not elite.
Right, because only 5 quarterbacks can get paid a decent amount of money. Because if you're not elite, you're garbage. Remember, that's the cone, clown, click motto. If you're not elite, because I know a lot of them, or at least one of them, has a complete hard-on for Josh Allen, who's a very good, excellent quarterback. But if you're not Allen or Mahomes or Jackson or Burrow, if you want to throw Justin Herbert in there, if you're not one of those guys, hopefully I didn't forget anybody, you're not worth anything. You should be thrown out. You're trash. The cone clown click. Cocksuckers, one and all. So Broncos 18 for his first 18. 80%. Doesn't feast on a bad team. It's not like, he's playing a bottom feeder. Bears, these good, feisty defense, but they beat the Bears every which way they could be beaten on offense. Every which way, with Brock being in complete control. And for anyone out there that's even of the mindset that Caleb Williams right now is a better quarterback than Brock Purdy, I will direct you to ESPN or Pro Football Reference, NFL.com, anywhere you want to go, and compare Brock Purdy's rookie year to Caleb Williams' rookie year. Brock Purdy played 5 regular season games, and he had a better touchdown to interception ratio than Caleb Williams did coming into this game, and even probably after this game. So let me repeat that. Brock Purdy, through 5 games, who was actually a Rookie of the Year candidate, I think he came in like 5th. Rookie of the Year candidate after 5 games, just going to 5 regular season games, going to show how great he performed. Performed better in 5 games than Caleb Williams did in 12. I have nothing against Caleb Williams, nothing against the Bears. They're a who gives a shit franchise. They're like the Denver Broncos, having a nice season. They're going to make a wild card. They're going to get bounced in the first round. Bo Nix having a really good year. But they're a who gives a shit franchise. They're an irrelevant franchise right now, even if they make the playoffs. They're like the Colts, the Cardinals, the Saints, Jacksonville, the Titans. Even though the Broncos have a winning record, they're just Bo Nix having a nice year, and Cortland Sutton's an above-average receiver, and Nick Bonito on the defensive line is double-digit sacks, and they're playing some good defense, and Patrick Surtain, of course. But it's like, who really gives a shit about the Denver Broncos? Even if they make the playoffs, how many primetime games are they going to get next year? No one cares. No one cares. But not Brock fans, for sure. 49er fans sporting all sorts of boners Saturday, during the Penn State-Oregon Big Ten championship game for Penn State quarterback Drew Aller, who's a junior. Not sure if he's coming out this year. I don't follow Penn State. I don't care what's going on with that program or anything. So I'm not sure if he's announced if he's coming out or not. But I know, the cone clown click, because if you got the measurables, you going to be a good quarterback. You're a big guy. You're a big guy like Josh Allen, so he's going to be pretty good. And Drew Aller from Penn State, 6'5", 240, had a good year this year. Completed, nearly 70% of his passes, 21 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, a measurables quarterback, right? And the NFL is littered with them. Being on, I was on Twitter, just kind of X, whatever the fuck you want to call it, last night, and just kind of scrolling through, because the games were exciting. The Clemson game was exciting. My son's a Clemson fan. We were watching that. SMU coming back, and they rightfully deserve to be in the playoff over Alabama and Miami. So I'm glad the committee got that right. Some good games. And I was watching more the Clemson game than the Oregon Penn State game. But during that game, and even after and into today, fans, in air quotes, asking for, or predicting, not even asking, these are how dumb these people are, predicting the Niners will draft Drew Aller in the first round of this upcoming draft. Saw that way too much. You can have man crushes on college athletes. I mean, I think it's a little weird, especially if you're older, like a little weird, right? I mean, for the same reason I can't wear like a jersey, or for an opposite reason I can't wear jerseys of anybody younger than me. I'll wear jerseys of Hall of Fame classic 49er players. But a lot of people asking for the Niners, either Drew Allar from Penn State or any other quarterback, that the Niners should be drafting a quarterback this year. Dumb fucks, midbrains, shitheads. And there was one person that, unfortunately for him, because I made him my bitch, got in my crosshairs and asked that, like, the Niners are going to draft Drew Allar in the second round of the. Oh, sorry, didn't do the voice.
Yeah, bro, the Niners are going to draft Drew Allar in the second round of the draft, man. Like, let him sit for a year behind Brock Purdy, and then he'll take over.
So then I called this moron out on it. Like, yeah, that's a moronic take because the Niners do need help on the D line, on the O line. They could probably use another safety if Jair Brown isn't the guy and they don't bring back Talanoa Hufanga. The Niners have needs. A lot of injuries obviously this year, but the Niners need to fill holes in free agency and the draft in March and April of 2025. Spending a first round pick on a position that's not O-line or D-line, stupid. Spending a second round pick on a position that's not O-line, D-line, maybe safety, stupid. The worst position you could possibly draft out. Well, and you could probably, I was going to say kicker. We'll get to Jake Moody. Maybe quarterback is still the dumbest position to draft early. So, I challenged and questioned this person. Like, you don't think they have bigger needs in the first or second round than a quarterback when you have someone like Brock Purdy who's going to get paid? He's going to get paid, morons. Not you guys that are listening because you're smart, but moron Niner fans. He's going to get paid. And here was the Twitter twat's response. Was it after? It might have been actually after this game. I'm just losing track of time. Quote from the Twitter twat. After this game, 80%, 325, 2 touchdowns. Quote, one game. Oh, wait. Sorry. Let me do the voice.
One game cancels out an entire season of mediocrity? They should take Allar in the second round. No question.
And then just because I like playing with these morons, my response back was like, hey, care to bet that they don't? I will deactivate my Twitter account if the Niners draft a quarterback in the first or second round. Conversely, if they don't, you have to deactivate your Twitter account. And then here was the quote back.
Well, I'm not saying that they will. I'm saying that they should.
Well, if you think they should draft a quarterback, not that they will, then your brain is stupid. You're a midbrain. Because what you think they should do should align somewhat to what the Niners will do, because that's called reality. That's where we live, some sort of pragmatic, logical reality of what the Niners are going to do. Absolute morons, complete coward of a human being, complete, pounding my chest. And he was, trying to ride the coattails of one of the Cone Clown cliques in one of the threads about,
hey, man, did you see Drew Allar, man? He would be great for the Niners. They're going to draft him in the second round.
Like, just trying to suck at the dick of some of these ivory tower content creators who say stupid shit to say stupid shit and for engagement. But it's absolutely ridiculous that some fans believe this. Some fans actually believe that the Niners should draft a quarterback. If you can tell me the Niners can draft a quarterback just as good or better than what Brock Purdy has done 2022, 2023, and this year, then you can guarantee it from the jump. And I'll say absolutely do it, because you do get that quarterback on a rookie deal. I understand the thought process. Get a cheap quarterback, pay other people, build around him. I get it. That's what the Niners did 2022, 2023, and this year. NFC Championship game, Super Bowl appearance, and they're going to miss the playoffs this year more than likely, right? So I get the reasoning, but there's no guarantee of anything. And when you have someone like Brock, who I keep saying is a top 8 to 12 quarterback in this league, you do not let him go. You pay him. It's a question of, is he going to get paid top 5 money, or is he going to get paid 6 through 12 money? And he should get paid 6 through 12 money, but the market is what it is. I keep comparing it to real estate, right? You can look at a house and say, "Oh, that house isn't worth $700,000. I'll give you $550 for it." And then, of course, the real estate agent or the owner just laughs in your face. I don't care what you think it's worth. No one cares what you think it's worth, buyer or fan or Joe or Jane Schmo on the street. It's the market. It's the comparables. Other houses in the neighborhood, or other houses of the same square footage that have sold recently. And what are the comparables in the NFL? Other quarterbacks that have gotten paid recently, like Tua and Jordan Love and Jalen Hurts and Trevor Lawrence and Jared Goff. And Brock Purdy is right in that conversation, right in that tier of quarterback. If he gives the Niners a hometown discount to me is under 50. Somewhere between 45 and 50 million annually. That's a hometown discount. But I think he's going to get between 50 and 55 annually. And if I'm his agent, I'd be asking for more than 55 or more than 60 because that's what Dak got. Like I said, if the Niners offer 45 and they're asking, and Brock and his agent are asking for 60, and you settle at 52 and a half annually, we'll see what the signing bonus is, guaranteed money, all that good stuff. Seems completely fair to me. And now there's a report by, I don't know if this was Ian Rappaport, I don't want to say, or Adam Schefter, but one of the more trusted actual media journalists, not these cocksucking content creators who just say stupid shit to say stupid shit. Here was the quote. Quote, "The season has obviously not gone as they hoped and expected, leading to some questions, I guess, about whether or not Brock Purdy is still the guy. From what I'm told, he is, in fact, still the guy. The 49ers still plan on locking Brock Purdy up on a long-term extension this upcoming offseason." No shit. What are we fucking talking about here? The fact that this is, who's saying Brock Purdy's not the guy? Who is actually saying Brock Purdy's not the guy? Maybe he's not the guy like Mahomes is, or Allen, or Lamar Jackson, or Burrow, or, maybe he's not that class. He's the next tier. If there's 6 are in tier 1, then he's in the tier 2-6. No fucking questions asked. And you can't convince me otherwise. From what I'm told, he's still, in fact, the guy. When was he not the guy? Was he not the guy last year? Being an MVP finalist, going to the Super Bowl, breaking Niner records? I mean, even after a mediocre season this year, when you still can, when you take his 5 games from his rookie year and his 11 games from this year, he's still 4,000 yards, 26 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. What are we talking about, people? I'm not a Brock. I like Brock. I'm not a Brock homer, but I'm here. You watch it. He's got the it factor. He's a leader. He's got pocket presence, mobility. Sorry that he's not 4 inches taller. Sorry that he's not 25 pounds heavier. And sorry that he doesn't have a cannon arm. Because I'm sure if he looked the part, you'd feel more comfortable rubbing one out to him. Or if you're a female, fingering yourself to oblivion. What are we talking about with Brock? And yet, I felt this way after the Buffalo game. He had essentially the same stat line as Josh Allen. Essentially, he had 3 drops. Allen didn't have any. If those 3 drops are catches, both quarterbacks are 14 for 18 for about 140, 50 yards on the day. So he can't play with Josh Allen in the snow. He can't make the throws Josh Allen makes. Not a lot of quarterbacks can. But did Brock get the ball into the end zone twice today? Was he throwing players open? Was he making the right reads, making quick decisions, escaping with his legs? Yes, 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 and yes. Sorry his wardrobe is from Kohl's. Guys are ridiculous. The running game, 34 for 131 and 3 touchdowns. Get this, guys. 3 running backs actually ran the ball. Can you believe it? Now, some of it was because Isaac Guerrero went out late in the game or in the fourth quarter with a foot injury, but he went 15 for 78 and 2 touchdowns. Patrick Taylor, 7 for 25 and a touchdown. Debo got 5 carries for 13 yards. Brock, 5 for 11. And Keyshawn Vaughn, 2 for 4. So the running back who they signed, that the Jets released, signed to the 53-man active roster, was not active. Instead, Keyshawn Vaughn, who was with the Niners for a large portion of the season on the practice squad, got re-signed this week to the practice squad and elevated as one of the 3 active running backs because he's familiar with the system, as is Patrick Taylor. So the last remaining running back, and I don't have his name written down and I forgot, is it Israel Abunaconda, something close to that? Maybe in the coming weeks will, see some activity, or at least be active. Maybe he doesn't see some carries. But this is kind of the breakdown that the Niners need, right? Say you get 15 to 20 from your starting running back. You get another 5 to 10 from your backup. Taylor had 7. Guerendo had 5. Then your third running back, if it's Debo or Keyshawn Vaughn, they combine for 7 carries. With Brock's 5, that's how you get to 34. Without Brock's 5, you get to 29, and you're not at that magic number of 30 plus runs, what they got to, 34, and less than 30 passes, which they were at. Brock had 25. That is the formula for the best chance of success for San Francisco, as long as it's a game that does not get away from them early and forces them to pass more than they need to. Kudos, revamped running game, may be revamped even further next week if Isaac Guerendo is out, not even next week, Thursday, 4 days from now. I'm recording this on Sunday night. If Guerendo can't go due to a foot sprain, but the offense performed right around their average, shade under their average, getting to 131 yards on the day. Now, the defense played well, but we're going to preface it with this. Nick Sorensen still needs to be fired. I don't care if the next 4 games look like this. Nick Sorensen needs to be fired. The Bears are bad. They're going to be playing against a Rams team. Let's see what they can do. They're going to be playing against a Dolphins team that's a mess. Detroit's going to light them up, and Arizona had a stranglehold, had a good chance at running away with the division, but they're just shitting all over themselves. Regardless of how this looked today, Sorensen still has to go. I said, give me Ulbrich, give me Jim Schwartz, or give me Mike Zimmer. Sorensen's got to be gone. Now, he did hold Caleb Williams to 17 for 23, 134 yards. Did have 2 borderline meaningless touchdowns in the second half, was sacked 6 times. So nice to see. And I think one of the sacks was actually on a 5-man pressure. Can you believe it? Yetur Gross-Matos with 3, Leonard Floyd with 2, and Malik Collins with 1. The running game, which the Bears completely abandoned in the first half, 21 for 68 yards. Most of that came in actually the third quarter when the Bears were actually committed to running the football. As it stands, a shade over 3 yards a carry. The run defense did what they needed to do. The defense, it was rare the past 3 weeks, they were playing from ahead. And they were playing from really far ahead, that when it was 24-0 and the Bears made it 24-6, it didn't feel, and missed the 2-point conversion, didn't feel like this game was going to go south the way that the Ram game, the Cardinal game, and the Seahawks game went. And to some degree, the second Seahawks game and the Cowboy game, letting those teams come back in it before actually finishing them off. And a nod to Evan Anderson. I think he's a keeper at defensive, as a rotational defensive tackle, right? Who knows what the Niners D tackle rotation is going to look like next year, especially if they get rid of Javon Hargrave. They're going to need to fill a slot, whether it's in the draft and free agency or both. But this is a team next year should be rolling with 5 D tackles and 5 DNs. The fact that they broke camp and started the regular season with 8 D linemen, 4 edges, and 4 D tackles always felt light to me, just based on, and you're only going to have 4 and 4 on your game day roster, because you have to, what was it, the game day, the active 47, 48, whatever it may be. But if this team is built in the trenches outward defensively, I'd want one more body at both the D tackle and DM positions. We're a ways away from next year, but just kind of thinking a little bit ahead now that we're talking about Eric Anderson. Again, let's go back to this whole, where has this been on defense? The Bears are trash. They played against a rookie quarterback who was well in over his head, as was his offensive coordinator / interim head coach to start the game. The Bears have been a mess for the vast majority of the season. They were a mess today. They're a bad team. The Niners' entire team did what they're supposed to do against bad teams and pound the crap out of them. Again, we talked about that bump from firing Matt Eberflus. Did not happen. It was more similar to the Jets getting rid of Robert Saleh. Jeff Ulbrich being the interim hasn't really worked out for them, right? Hasn't. What else changed? Talanoa Hufanga was in. Jair Brown was out as starting safety. They put George Odom, backup safety, on IR. So your 4 safeties are now Malik Mustafa, Talanoa Hufanga, Jair Brown, and Tayshaun Gibson. We'll see what this means. Even though Brown was not in the starting lineup, he did let up a touchdown, the second touchdown that Romadunze had when Jair Brown was, I guess, playing the middle third of the field, and they were backed up. They were, he was starting coverage close to his own end zone. Adunze kind of, ran at him, planted left, cut right. There was another receiver next to him. I think it might have been Keenan Allen. Jair Brown drifted over towards Allen, who was being covered already, or was at least approaching the zone that another Niner defensive back was in. Adunze went the other way. Jair Brown tried to react to it, let up the touchdown. He should not have bit so heavily on, Adunze going left, because he had additional defensive back help there. Let up the touchdown. We'll see what this means for Jair Brown and Talanoa Hufanga moving forward. I'm not going to say Talanoa Hufanga is no great kicks and coverage, guys. So anyone's going to say that Jair Brown's a liability in coverage. Yeah, that's true. But are we saying Talanoa Hufanga is not more physical in the run game? But that's what you have Malik Mustafa for. Regardless if it's not Jair Brown or Talanoa Hufanga, they need someone who's a bit more of a ball hawk, a bit more of a center fielder. They don't play single high a ton, but you want to complement what Malik Mustafa does: run defense, physicality, and he's played, I think, above his head better than we anticipated in terms of pass coverage. But I think they need someone on the back end that has a bit more range and could be a bit more of an enforcer in the air, knocking down passes, getting, sticky coverage on a slot receiver or, a tight end that breaks through the first 2 levels, whatever it may be. And if that's a free agent, if that's we'll throw out Adrian Amos. I don't think Tayshaun Gibson's going to be back again next year, but you never know. If he wants to play, he could be on the practice squad. They may need to be able to bring someone else in, because it's that person's certainly not George Odom, and it's starting to look like, if it hasn't already, that it's not Jair Brown. Talanoa Hufanga, 5 total tackles, 2 solo, no passes defensed. Let's not jump on, Talanoa Hufanga's genitals and, now that he's back, that's why 38-30. He did not have a huge impact on the game. Didn't make any game-changing plays. Nothing that jumped out to me significantly watching the game, but an improvement over Jair Brown. He's just a more talented player than Jair Brown, but they both have the same limitations when it comes to coverage. That's what needs to be upgraded in the offseason. Now, Jake Moody, he was at least perfect on his kicks, right? 5 extra points and 1 field goal. But what the hell was it with the 2 kicks that didn't reach the landing zone? 2 kickoffs that he could not get to the 20 that gave the Bears the ball on their own 40. If that was a coaching decision by Brian Schneider to, hey, let's kick a quasi squib, then all the more reason to fire Brian Schneider. If it's Jake Moody missing those 2 kicks, I'm not going to say cut Jake Moody, he's got to go. That'd be a little bit of a drastic response. But if it was a coaching thing, let's go back to that. Why, Brian Schneider, why are you telling Jake Moody to do that? He's got the leg to blast the ball deep or out of the end zone. Just do that. You want what? You want to squib it and give your return unit a chance to make a tackle, past the 35? There's no iteration of this that makes sense, right? It only makes sense if Moody missed the kick, and then it's like, how do you miss 2 fucking kickoffs? It feels like it was a coached thing, which is another check mark or a middle finger in the column for Brian Schneider, who's got to go after this year. Kyle, after the game, let's just talk about that. He was, I can't believe, I guess if you're a media member, you have to ask these questions or acknowledge, you got to ask the questions and acknowledge that this shit is floating out there in social media. And John Lynch was also asked this week about the rumor of Kyle Shanahan being traded to the offseason to another team. And the Bears were the team that was floated out there since they don't have a coach. And I guess they don't have a coach. They're playing the Niners. Let's fabricate a story about Shanahan getting traded. Fine. John Lynch laughed it off. And it's so he's got to answer it. And of course, he's going to give the answer that a lot of owners give. We really like Kyle. We're committed to him. Like, Kyle loves to be here. Kyle loves being here. We love having him. It's things that owners say about head coaches a week before they fire them. So it's just an awkward thing because Lynch has to answer it. And it just sounds like when coaches are in a bad spot and GMs get rid of them anyway. That's not happening. It's not happening at all. I have my issues with Kyle. Is he perfect? No. Are any coaches really perfect? Maybe outside. Who's the closest? Andy Reid? John Harbaugh? People want to put Mike Tomlin back on a pedestal. However many years of not being under 500. Yeah, where's this team gone playoff-wise the past decade? It's nice that there's coaching consistency, though. That is a good thing. But Kyle was asked by one of the media members about the reports about him possibly being traded in the offseason. It's not a report, guys. It's a moron on social media that just said this, might have had this thought while taking a shit and decided, let me just put this out there. What if Kyle Shanahan gets traded in the offseason? And the Bears need a coach. Maybe the Bears could trade for. It's not based on anything except one asshole just decides to share his moronic musings with the masses. There's some quasi alliteration for you. And hopefully the Cone Clown Clique isn't watching or listening because they're illiterate, so they probably don't know what alliteration is. But it's not a story. It's not a report. If it was fabricated by a moron. But I felt bad that Kyle had to answer. And he loves being here. His family just as much, if not more so. They're going to have to kick him out of here. Yeah, Kyle does look. Someone made the point the past couple weeks that Kyle looks tired. Yeah. This has probably been a draining season for him, trying to figure out how to piece together a MASH unit that's had significantly more games missed this year than the train wreck 2020 COVID season. And if that season, the Niners finished 6-10 coming off a Super Bowl appearance and Kyle didn't go anywhere, and everybody was like, maybe, I don't know. I don't think I was on Twitter. No, I wasn't on Twitter in 2020. So I don't know how much the morons were like, get rid of Kyle. But if people were kind of the logical people were saying all right, this team was a disaster injury-wise, even coming off the Super Bowl. Obviously, Kyle didn't go anywhere. Then the same rationale has to be applied. And this team has suffered more games missed by significant players already by about 10 to 15 games than all of the 2020 season. And there's 4 games left. And Isaac Orendo may miss a game, and Ben Barch may miss a game. We're going to get to injuries. We'll transition to injuries in a second. So obviously Kyle's not going anywhere. Obviously the injuries have had a major impact on this team. And they're 6-7 with a decent chance to finish either probably 8-9 or 9-8. So 8 or 9 wins during a disastrous injury-riddled season is better than 6 wins in a less disastrously injury-ridden season in 2020 equals Kyle's not going anywhere. This team is having an off year, a lot of bad injuries, a lot of bad luck. And you know what? If they get a 4th place schedule and they get people healthy and they have 50% fewer injuries, 30% fewer injuries next year, they're going to tear through their schedule and probably be back to being a 10 or 11 win team. Or better. Mentioned injuries. Isaac Orendo, foot sprain left in the 4th quarter. Too early to tell about the game Thursday against the Rams. Ben Barch, who has the very real shot of being the starting left guard next year. Ankle, had to leave on a cart. Hopefully it's a high ankle sprain, which would probably end his season, but nothing that requires surgery. I was excited to see him play more. Spencer Burford came in at the left guard spot, which means on the roster now, it's really just Nick Zakiel, who's one of your main or your main interior backup at both guard spots and center. They brought up Sebastian Gutierrez as the backup tackle since Trent Williams didn't play again and Jalen Moore got to start. So the Niners, if Barch is out for an extended period of time, or at least for the Thursday game, he's not going to play in the Thursday game. I highly doubt that they're going to have to do something else on the O-line. I don't know if training camp hero, fan favorite Drake Nugent, center, gets kind of called up, or I forget who else they have on their practice squad on the O-line. Something to keep an eye on, but the injuries just keep on coming. And what does it mean? Like takeaways, or we're looking at the NFC West. Well, the Cardinals are a sham, right? They got beaten up by Seattle today. The Rams decide to just beat Buffalo, and it's not like the Niners beat up Buffalo last Monday night. That was a shootout. What, that game was in the low 40s, high 30s, something like that. So Seattle 8-5, the Rams 7-6, Arizona 6-7, the Niners 6-7. The Niners still at the bottom of the NFC West with 4 games to go. So here's the good news. They have the Rams on Thursday. If they can get that win, 7-7, Arizona's at home against New England. You have to figure Arizona bounces back. So the Niners win, Arizona wins. Those 3 teams are 7-7. Seattle's last 4 games: at home for Green Bay, Sunday night, next Sunday, at home for Minnesota, at Chicago, and at the Rams. I don't think Seattle's that good. They might be the worst 8-5 team in the history of the NFL. I'm not saying that because I don't like the Seahawks. I'm saying it because I think it might be true or close to true. Can't you see them dropping all 4 of those? I don't think they're going to win all 4 of those. They can maybe go 2-2, but you can see them losing 3 or 4 of those games. Seattle in cold weather at Chicago, at the Rams. The Rams may need that, for jockeying for playoff position or whatever, or wanting to play spoiler. And Green Bay and Minnesota, at home, obviously 2 good teams. Niners are going to need help. Niners are going to need a lot of help. The Niners are going to need to go 3-1. And the Rams, the Seahawks are going to have to go 1-3 or 0-4 for them to overtake them. It's how big the Niners-Seahawk game was. It would have made Seattle 7-6, the Niners 7-6. I mean, that game so big. The Jets game against Seattle, I said last podcast, Aaron Rodgers throwing that pick 6. That totally changed the game. The Jets would have won that game. Seattle would have been 7-6. The Niners being 1 game back of Seattle is much more attainable than 2 games back with 4 to go. Now, listen, crazier things have happened. Green Bay, Minnesota, Chicago, and the Rams for the Seahawks. I mean, if you had to bet money on it right now, right, you're betting on the Seahawks probably winning the division. Second place would be the Rams. I think Arizona is more or less cooked, and the Niners have a severe uphill climb. Next week for San Francisco, it's officially mathematically, well, I shouldn't say officially because I don't know what the Seahawks are going to do, but it's more or less mathematically their season, right? They drop it to the Rams, they're done. And as much as we feel like they're done now, and it's probably a safe bet to say they're probably going to finish 3rd or 4th in the West, they're in it until they're not. They get a win against the Rams. Both teams are 7-7. You keep pressure on Seattle to keep winning. Keep pressure on Arizona. Arizona's got New England and Carolina next. Carolina's feisty, New England garbage, but Arizona hasn't looked good the past month. Who knows, right? Who knows? I just wouldn't bet on anything. I think the best the Niners finish in the West is 2nd place. 3rd place, most likely. 4th place, obviously, still a very strong possibility as well. So that concludes the Niners podcast for today. We will have another podcast leading into the Rams game. That's going to be sometime on Tuesday for the Thursday night game in Santa Clara on Amazon Prime Video. Thank you for taking time out of your busy day to make us part of your listening routine today and every day. Niners with a big win. You want to call it a statement win? You can, because going into the game, the Niners were 5-7 and the Bears were 4-8. So they made a statement against a team kind of on their level. Just wish, I'm sure we all wish, that we saw a little bit more of this, a little bit more throughout this regular season. But whatever you are doing between now and Thursday, everyone, on Tuesday, stay happy, healthy, and safe. We will talk again soon. Take care.